Cool. All right, let's just do it, man.
Yeah, man.
I was gonna say return. Return of the podcast, episode 150, whatever.
We're
Uh
back at it.
Red River podcast, not return. That'd be fun. We should be called.
The
Re-
return of Red River Podcast,
yeah, yeah.
the
What?
sequel,
Just change it up a
Electric
little bit.
Boogaloo.
uh
Before we start today, though,
yeah.
I my son has some notes on the Metallica episode. I
Oh,
got to
that
mention
that is very funny. Go ahead.
he listened to right when it came out. For Whom the Bell Tolls was before the Ride the Lightning. We got that twisted.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay, and Screaming Suicide, I said, hasn't been played before live in the tour, and it was.
Okay.
So
All
I
right.
gotta correct that. Notes from the editor.
He
And
he
he also, if you're curious, he gave me real quick his uh top 10 post Black Metallica songs if you'd like to hear it.
yeah, man, for sure.
All right. 10, Moth in the Flame. 9, Crown of Barbed Wire. 8, King Nothing. 7, Frantic. 6, That Was Just Your Life. 5, All Nightmare Long. 4, Room of Mirrors. 3, Halo on Fire. 2, The Day That Never Comes. And 1 is his all-time favorite Metallica song, Suicide and Redemption, the instrumental from Death Magnetic.
Wow.
So that's what a 13-year-old perspective, just out of curiosity,
Yeah,
when they
that's
hear Metallica.
and I love you know, certain things are very memorable, but as soon as you rattled off those 10 songs, once you got
Hmm.
to number 2, which I'm pretty sure was on my list,
I
the
believe so.
the day that never comes, as soon as you mention that name, I just hear that riff right away.
Yeah,
So it's a pretty strong riff. And that song in particular is a really strong balance of old and new. Like
yeah,
you could really put that on the Black album, I
I
think.
get it.
You know.
Totally. That would work.
So, but all right, man. Glad to get G checked on it. Nick actually just messaged me and said that I guess the next show that they're playing, they do Leper Messiah. So he's like, I guess
Oh,
I'm never gonna see
shit.
it. So they crowbarred it in there. It was Creeping Death, um, Harvester. Then they do Leper Messiah. Then they do Until It Sleeps.
That was last night's show in Montreal.
I don't. Yeah, I guess I don't. He
Yeah,
just sent me something. So
I didn't check their set list. I was meaning to do that today. I was curious
yeah,
what they were going to, because certain songs, the ones that are going to get subbed out here and there, and ones that will probably never get subbed out. So,
yeah. Oh yeah. So you're right because like that fourth slot, we got Memory Remains, and then they
yeah.
put in Until It Sleeps. So at that
Of
point,
the
it's
two nights in every city, Master of Puppets and Sandman will be present. One will be present at either of the night. Like, you know what I mean? Certain
yeah,
ones. But Harvester will probably come out, Leper Messiah, things like that. That's going to be
yeah,
the shift I'll be curious about. But,
yeah. Man, and I'm gonna go see Queens of the Stone Age tonight, so I'm pretty psyched
oh,
about
you got
that.
tickets?
Yeah,
How'd you
so
get them?
I mean, just a friend of a friend bought an extra one,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Fuck it." I'm like, "I'll just go." My girlfriend didn't want to go,
Right.
so I'm like, "I'll just hop on a train, go to Forest Hills, watch them." And I'm trying to remember who's opening. I know Fantagram is, but I know that there's
That's
another
the only
band.
one I saw, Fantagram, which is great. I've still yet to be to that venue.
Oh, it's awesome.
Is it? Yeah.
It's very cool because I like a venue on Long Island that you could just hop on a train. Like I'll jump on the
Sure.
Babylon train and then I get out at four, like it's right there. And then as soon
Yeah.
as you're done, you jump right back. So you can't beat that.
Let me ask you the ultimate Long Island question would be how's the parking?
I wouldn't know because I don't, yeah, I don't park the train. So I don't know.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But apparently it's, pretty shitty. But a friend of the group wrote that that there's like a parking garage if you want to do like a 10-minute walk or whatever,
Right.
which is fine. But if you're able to jump on the train and then
Or an
jump
Uber.
back, yeah, or an Uber. That's right. Parker,
Probably not bad to that place, actually.
no. Yeah, even then I still wouldn't. It's like I don't drink. So to me, it's the idea that I could just jump on a train is one thing, but the idea that I could just go across the street to my car, jump in it, and drive to wherever I got to go, I'm always just going to drive. Always, unless it's like midtown or a place where I'm just going to want to punch a steering wheel for an hour because
Yeah.
because of the traffic.
I mean, you can't put a value on those keys and being at your own control on when you want to leave and
Hold
not a
on.
schedule
I'm
or
gonna I'm gonna break the podcast for a second because I've been waiting for this call. Hold on.
I
Hey Jim, you're on the podcast right now. All right, let me I just wanted to take the call because I didn't want to. So let me finish up this podcast and I'll call you back. All right, let it. So that's my boy Jim Shearman, who's
or
who directed our last video. He's good. Like I was trying to get a hold of him yesterday because once you start talking about making the next video, there's a lot of
Mhm.
moving parts, and I have to sew them together real quick. When somebody approves a location and it's like, okay, when do you need it? So it's like you know, the audience is just
Right.
gonna have to suffer through that 10 seconds. Unless I cut it out, but sometimes I just won't because who cares?
Keep it authentic.
Yeah. Yeah,
No.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, I think
How was your acting debut that you
oh, yeah. So Anthony Natoli, who was on the podcast that directed Sunday, 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 wrote a sequel and he's filming that and
Monday, Monday, Monday?
yeah, it's called Monday, Monday, Monday. And it's called Sunday, 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 Sunday. So he's like, I wrote you a part and acting all that shit sounds cool until you go do it because
Yeah.
the video that we filmed for the song Take Me Back for my band, we had to do some acting as well. And I tell you what, I can't even watch the intro to that video because I just get complete douche chills. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you know what? Like, I'm never gonna do this again. It's one of those things where it seems like an easy thing to do. Like you just like, talk in front of a
It's all
camera.
about how natural you
Yeah.
feel and look. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If you can really inhabit like another mindset that maybe not be the way you normally would talk in a conversation and be in that headset, that's and
Yeah.
sell it. Yeah.
Apparently that's not possible for me. So I did 2 days of filming so far. One, I didn't have to talk, and actually I didn't have I just had to beat someone up basically. So
Oh, nice.
me and this other guy stomped out the director in a parking lot somewhere in Lynbrook. So
Any
uh
kind of like one liner after you were done beating them, like an 80s one liner you threw at them?
no, but like
Or can you?
so the first movie was in the 70s. This one takes place 10 years later in 85.
Oh,
So
nice.
we had to
How was your
like
wardrobe?
that's what it was. He had to like dress me up because I was like, yo, I literally wear like the same thing. Like I have
Some
plain
leg warmers on, some shoulder.
he was like, yo, he's like, think bad guys from Roadhouse. And I'm like, okay. And I knew right away what he was thinking. He was thinking the fat guy with the mullet. I'm like, that's exactly what like he's thinking. And as soon as he dressed me, I was like, oh, this is exactly who I had in mind. It was like the
Yeah,
big chubby like bouncer guy that was there, not doing such a good job. Um,
nice. That's
but
fun though.
I'll intertwine it. Our buddy Chris Longito just sent me a picture, and the picture is a T-shirt that he just got, and it was for the bar in Roadhouse, Double Deuce live music. He got to see.
Okay,
Yeah, just so random. He like sent me that picture. So
nice.
yeah, you know what? It always comes back to Roadhouse, is what I'm trying to say.
Everything.
No matter what we do, we just bring it right back.
All life's mysteries can be solved through
So
something in Roadhouse.
I know that we were talking about like doing like a little series on the show. We always try to mix it up where we watch movies that we've seen, but it's been a while to see if they still hold up. I think Roadhouse would be a fun one.
Absolutely. That would be
Uh,
a pleasure.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a sequel.
I do remember something to that effect. I definitely never saw it. Who is? It wasn't Swayze, right? It was.
Nah, Swayze was like, no thanks. I'm gonna go do Point Break.
Let me
uh
guess, like Richard Grieco or like Peter DeLuise or something.
Treat Williams. Treat Williams took he's like, I'll take this one over
Poor
too.
man, Swayze. Yeah.
Uh R.I.P. though, Treat.
Yo, how
R.I.P.
about Kurt Russell in Roadhouse? How badass would that have been?
Oh, that's I mean, he could pull it
A
off
different
now.
film. That's a different film.
So I know Jake Busey was in it. So let me just look. Let me just look at the cast of Roadhouse 2.
Jake Busey, Jay Moore. Who else?
Uh yeah, I don't know. No one really. I don't know who the main character is.
That's believable too. You know,
Jonathan. Yeah, I don't know. The Will
that's
Patton.
probably the case of maybe of somebody owning the rights to the Roadhouse name, putting out another Roadhouse. When the year did it come out? How long after the
Uh,
first?
so if you 2006. So if you look up the
Oh
actual movie
wow,
Roadhouse 2, it looks like the porn parody version of Roadhouse. Like that's what the cover looks like. It's pretty much amazing.
2006. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely keeping the rights alive. That's a long time after the first one
Yeah, I love
to
that.
entertain going back.
Keeping the rights alive is such a funny like entertainment angle. Um,
I
which
never thought about things that way until I saw that Fantastic Four
oh,
documentary. And when we were
that's
talking to Brian Usna, and he
yeah,
was talking about how, oh, sequels is no brainers because it's just the instant money because you don't have to do this, blah, 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 certain things, you know.
and
But
and Hellraiser
yes, yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like, wait, why are you guys making these movies that are so terrible? And it was like, oh, you have to like use it basically. But yeah,
Hmm.
it comes down to that Fantastic Four documentary called Doomed, and it's holy shit, that is like one of my favorite. Like I could watch that all the time
Yeah,
because it's so absolutely absurd. And the fact that those people had no idea that that's what they were making, like they were just like,
fascinating.
they're like, yeah, whatever. Like we'll just make this, and they're thinking that this is their big break, and it's like, nah,
You got to ask yourself, though, like, say you own the rights, right? You're like, all right, shit, it's been 10 years. I got to put out a shitty version of it. And you know it's shitty. You go, come on. So at
yeah.
what point do you decide to make a good one again? You
I
keep
don't know.
making it to have the rights, but they keep having the rights to make a shitty movie, or like,
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, like I think at the end of the day, you and I go to work, we get a paycheck,
yeah,
there's really not much passion to it. It's just what you do, and maybe that's what happens. It's like, okay, well, um, these are the resources we have to make this
mm-hmm.
movie, and we're gonna do the best we can. And like those Hellraiser movies, like the scripts were coming in, and they were
Mm-hmm.
just like, hey, you know what? Let's just throw the Cenobites in it and make it a Hellraiser. That's what it was. It was just like these
Yeah,
like true crime things. It's like, yeah, but
terrible.
what if we add Pinhead? you know?
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
really.
yeah, let's do it.
Got
Yeah,
a built-in fan base. The
yeah,
worst one, though, probably, and it's not exactly the same thing business-wise, but like Amityville Horror being in public domain.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
public domain. Nobody really owns that. You can make a movie and call it Amityville, whatever the fuck you want,
yeah.
and put it in that family.
So there's like the movie versions like that still had like some sort of like respect. Now it's just like crack house
Yeah,
and amity, like whatever, like it's just like
I'd watch that though.
me too, actually. I live 15 minutes away, so
I might have drove by one. I was gonna say,
yeah. So those things are, you could tell just from the trailer where it's like, Sharknado in
yeah.
Amityville, like where people are like, oh yeah, let's just do this and stuff.
Oh man,
Speaking of Sharknado, before we get to our topic, Shutter put up a 2 hour. It's called Shark Exploitation, and
I
they go through.
started it,
Yeah,
haven't finished it, but go ahead.
it it's cool. Like the beginning, they go through like the more like real shit, and then later on they go through like the Sharknadoes and like the Megalodon threes and
Yeah,
all that
the
other
Meg
stuff.
2 just was out in theaters. I was saying to my son, I'm like, yeah, if we got nothing to do, let's go see it. And we watched the first one, which I saw, and I knew it was gonna be stupid, but I
Yeah,
didn't remember it. So I said, let's watch it again and then make a decision if we want to see the Meg 2. And we were both like, this is it's so bad, man.
uh
It's not enough kills, man. It could have been they made it more savage, it would have been tolerable.
So I think that's what they did with this one. I think that they decided to make, because Meg 1 still rode that line of like, okay, we're still not trying to be over the top ridiculous,
Hmm.
but like the Meg 2 trailer is like, they're just like, it's like Jack Frost 1 to Jack Frost 2. They just,
Yeah,
they're like, you know what? We're just going to lean into this heavy. And, it's just, it's one of those things that just it doesn't even look real. It's just like this like weird cartoon.
you're either into that shark subculture, and I am because I've always, since I was a little kid, had a deep phobia of sharks, deep phobia. So it hits me in a spot, and it just like anything in the ocean, and especially at the bottom of the ocean, it freaks me out. So if a movie's got that kind of aspect in it, or like even I'm going to see Last Voyage of Demeter that takes place on a ship, it gets
Yeah.
me in a certain way, and actually I could segue, which into what we came to talk about,
Yeah, because I'm
because that deals with
I'm
a
with you.
phobia, as well as
I, I
sharks. So
I'm with you on that. That's what I was waiting for. So we, to preface what we're going to talk about, there were two movies that neither you or I saw. Like I saw
mm,
Arachnophobia and you saw Spinal Tap, but we didn't see, or but I what am I trying to describe right now? I'm like fucking still sleeping. But
eh,
you needed to see Arachnophobia. I loved it. You loved Spinal Tap. I didn't see it. So we're like, hey, let's just watch these two
all right.
movies and discuss it.
They're
And
movies that just slip through your finger. You didn't see it like in the theater when it came out, and it wasn't like there was streaming then in 1990. So it's like,
once it's
it went
gone,
out of
it's
my
gone.
head. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've always heard it like mentioned as good, and I was like, I gotta see that, but just never do.
once it's gone, it's gone. Now you
Right.
could watch anything, at your fingertips for the most part. But yeah, there was like, 10, 15, 20 years where these movies got forgotten unless you had a VHS, a
Hmm.
DVD, or whatever. Now it's like, okay, like I'll zap. Like yesterday I rented Arachnophobia for the 100th time just for no reason. But yeah, we
Hmm.
could start there, because had I wouldn't say a deep phobia, but spiders are fucking weird looking. And spiders or whatever, but tarantulas too, like when you see them, and in their heads they could be thinking like, they could have like the Benny Hill music in their head, not thinking anything. They're like, hey, this is life is cool. I'm just hanging out, eating fucking bugs and shit. I got 8 fucking feet. Check me out. It's like, oh, cool. Oh, human, what's up? And it's
Yeah.
like, why? It's like Herman Munster. Like he has no idea why he's scary, or they could just be
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna fuck shit up, like I don't know what they're thinking in their head, but
Yeah. There's no spider whispers. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I think it's the fur. They got that little fur that makes them worse,
yeah.
creepier. You know.
But also like the eyeballs, like,
Oh
and
yeah.
there's like one for each leg, I think, or so. I don't even know. Maybe I
Is
made
that
that
what how
up.
that works?
I have no idea. Maybe there's four. Maybe there's two. Anywhere between 2 and 8 is what I'm gonna go. you know. And then they have that fucking like I forget what it's called, like that butt. It's like just like
What?
it's like it's got that fucking like that ball at the end of their body. Is it called a thorax or something? Something like that.
I don't know. Dig,
Uh
dig back into that Selden science book, 10th grade or whatever,
so
biology.
they're horrifying looking. So for me, when this movie came out, I saw it in the theaters, and it wasn't really like, trying to think, like, so I was like 12. So this movie was perfect for me. I'll always remember the poster, which is just like that it's it looked very Spielbergian, which is
Mm,
the connection for sure. With the moonlight and a spider on a web, and you see it, and automatically as a kid, like I'm like, ooh, like like you
hmm.
just like you're kind of creeped out because you're already like grossed out by bugs, especially a spider. So that worked out for me, and I remember just going to see it, and it was a really really fun ride. Like absolutely, it was one of those movies that I watched right away, and it became one of my favorites because it was such a ride. It was such a ride, and the music, so like Frank Marshall directed it, and he was like one of Steven Spielberg's producers, and I think like Amblin had something to do it, but also it was like through Hollywood Pictures, which was like a offshoot of like Disney. So like all these things made it was almost like tickling the brain of like a Spielberg fan or like a kid, where it felt like an adventure. I don't know, maybe it was just the score, that's what it was, that just made it feel like very cinematic.
Hmm.
And then the town was very like such a small town, all the characters, like everyone that played it, it was so believable, so obviously I loved it, so just tell me what you think about it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I missed that I didn't see it in the theater because it's a popcorn flick, and to even have a scene with the spiders in the popcorn made it even more of like a fun cinematic experience, which you would expect from like in the Spielberg camp, you know, because it's got horror vibes, but it's like wholesome horror kind of. It's not going to be some gross out shit, but there might be some shit that's spooky for a younger person. Or if you have a spider thing, then obviously it's got a niche. If you have that phobia, but good comedy horror mix. John Goodman and that Bill Murray kind of Caddyshack kind of role parallels to that. Kind of steals the show, and John Goodman's always a fucking
and
home
and
run.
and and he was like the man then.
John Goodman's like when I watch a movie and I don't know who's in it, and then I'm like, I don't know where it's going, and I see John Goodman come on the screen. He's one of those guys. I'm like, okay, all right, something. I'm with this now. I
like
can trust that this is going somewhere.
Jamie Foxx didn't do that for you with God as a bullet.
Man, that was shit was bad, man.
All right, we'll get back to that. But yeah, so and this is when John Goodman ruled the world.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
he was like on top of the world.
John
Roseanne.
Goodman and Stuart Pankin ruled the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. I forgot. Yeah.
in every
Jeff
movie, man.
Daniels, right? Julian Sands, probably
R.I.P.
fresh off of Warlock,
Mm,
right? Because I think Warlock was like 89. And
I think you're right. Yep.
but it has that great beginning. It's almost like the Dead Alive beginning with the origin of like how this
Yeah.
thing gets there. And they're in this like jungle, and this like spiders like rolling around and stuff like that, and they're looking for like new species of spider or whatever the fuck they were doing.
Hmm.
um and it had that one Spanish guy too that's in like a bunch of shit, I forget his name. um and so this disgusting fucking spider fucking bites this photographer, and kills him, and then they send his body back to his like hometown, and it snuck in there. And I mean, were you expecting to see that body fucking sucked out of all that
No,
blood and stuff? That's pretty cool, right?
no, that was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because so it just really kind of like showed you that they were not playing, even though they were playing, and it was still that
Yeah,
wholesome town. But like
sure.
you're like, the music, the I don't know, everything about it, and then you see that and you're like, oh shit, you guys are.
I read a quote from Frank Marshall, and it makes perfect sense in describing this too. He said, people want to be scared but laughing, like a roller coaster. No one wants to be really terrified. I mean, I
Yeah,
beg to differ.
sure.
It takes a lot. I like a really fucked up movie, but that statement, and that's a very Spielbergian way, like, to make a film and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's great. And the thing that shocks me is that they didn't follow that up with a sequel. I mean, that's right for something or a sequel or a remake. I'm surprised you haven't seen because
I'll tell
it
you
had a
why.
$22 million budget. Made 8 million opening weekend and 53 on a gross. That's a success. Like it's surprising they didn't.
Not back then though. Because
Now,
I remember I was one of those geeks that always want. So every Friday or whatever it was, I'd go to the newspaper. I would go through box office because I love
hmm,
movies that much. I was like, oh, I want to see box office, and they always had like top 10, then the gross. I would go through Billboard magazine. I would go through the top 20, 200 albums, like 200. I'm talking about like I'm
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm looking at Bang Tango at 199, going like, all right, maybe next week they'll go up. So I
Fuck
love
yeah.
that stuff. And I remember Bang Tango. Didn't think I'd mention Bang Tango on this episode yet. Here we are. But I remember that it wasn't a hit. If I remember correctly, it opened at number 4.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
it opened at number 4, and when you look at those numbers now, they seem
Hmm.
astronomical because those numbers just, for the most part, barely exist right now.
Right.
Um, and so back then it was like, I think it was like a modest hit, and they were like, okay, that's cool, that went. So I couldn't imagine that they would have done a sequel. And
Yeah.
really,
I
really,
mean, the shit they make sequels of, though. I mean, they make a sequel of anything. At least it wasn't a flop, you know what I mean? But that's
I,
all I'm saying.
yeah, I think they did such a great job with it. When you think of spider movies, like this is the granddaddy to me. And I think I
I was
mentioned
gonna
it on
say, do you have you seen other like eight-legged freaks or any of those?
eight-legged. So, all right, so that's completely different though. So, but I think I
I
mentioned
never
it.
saw it.
I think I mentioned it on Facebook, and Jeff Kaplan, of course, disagreed with me. He said Kingdom of the Spiders, but it's like, all right, we get it. You're old. You're gonna mention that. You know what I mean? Like, that's good, but it's not really like Arachnophobia, I think, is the best spider movie that I could think of. Even though Eight-Legged Freaks, which I never saw in theaters, I saw later on. I probably saw maybe like within the last 10 years. It's fucking great. But
Is
it's
it?
like it's more of like the Blob. It's like more of like this, like what makes Arachnophobia work. It's like these were real spiders,
Oh yeah.
and they fucking somehow wrangled them amazingly, with all these like tricks, like hot air, like when they came out of the sink, like all these things that I remember from the trailer. Them
Uh,
coming out of the sink, it was because they blew hot air through that pipe, and they all just fucking ran out. And they
uh,
filmed it. When Jeff Daniels is trying to get out of the window, and like he puts his head out the window, and they start coming down, and like 3 at a time.
mhm.
The girl who was showering, and what happened was that spider was not supposed to go on her head, but I think, if I remember correctly, they said that they looked really like gross and big, but they were harmless.
Right.
So they got them from like New Zealand because they looked like, they looked fucking like some real deal fucking bad boys. So when she felt the spider jump on her head, it didn't bug her out that much. So she let the scene go, and then she like knocked it off, and it dropped down.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's because it's like you watch that she's showering. And the thing is, like right there, and she grabs that spider web, which was I think that was grosser than the actual spider. And then the spider fucking lands on her face completely,
Hmm.
and so when you think of other movies like Eight-Legged Freaks and like all these other things, it's always like a mutant spider, which is cool.
Sure.
What's another one? Big Ass Spider is another movie like that. None
Yeah,
of
I
them
guess
are.
I've missed a lot of the spider subgenre, I
Yeah,
guess. I'm big
yeah,
into like animal, like like I've seen frogs and slugs and all those ones. Food of the gods with the rats.
yeah,
I know they've
yeah.
made one about every creature. They were fucking one about rabbits. Remember Night
I
of the
mean,
Lepus?
they made one about mosquitoes. I think it was just called Skeeter.
Oh shit, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there's a few. There's a few because mosquitoes are probably like mosquitoes are the worst. Like,
Yo, they're
can you think of a
bringing
work? Like,
disease everywhere.
but they're
They carry
so
that shit.
like. Sometimes I'm like out at like work and stuff like that, and like some places just have like the worst. Like you go in someone's like backyard or whatever,
Ugh.
and it's like, yo, what are you guys doing back here? Like, why they're like, you can't even hang in a backyard sometimes, but it's not
It's
not to
it's
any
it's the
not.
people determined on like enjoy this weather that's so oppressively hot and disgusting and fuck the summer, man.
Yeah, it's
I'd
it's
rather be inside. I don't feel bad about missing the sun than have mosquitoes bite me. I'm sorry. I'm
yeah.
refuse to try anymore.
So I mean that's one genre that they could keep going
Hmm.
because it's just they're the worst. But yeah, so like Arachnophobia is like the only one that I could think of that it like you see everything, like all these spiders were just like I'm trying to think of like everything else had happened, right? So it's like they're kind of like it's like the adventure in the beginning of all of them, like as they're being born and they're going out into the world and they
Hmm.
keep like missing like the dog or the cat or like fucking John Goodman's hand at the toilet. And it's cool, like, like the football player puts on his helmet, fucking goes. The old guy puts on his slipper, the popcorn, once again, with the
That was great.
those two main characters. Yeah. So they really like by the end, they started ramping the dial. Like the last like 30, 40 minutes of the movie, they just started ramping that dial to go further and further. So when you see that couple, that married, couple with the popcorn sitting there and they're dead and they're coming out of there, like
Hmm.
it's like, okay, now it's time to like really turn it up.
I
And
had to switch to my regular microphone because this thing was acting up here. But I think why it works is too, as opposed to what you were saying with like the giant spiders or whatever, because that ain't happening. You know what I'm saying? There's no, but this a mass infestation of normal size spiders and shit that legit could happen. And I think
yeah,
that's the extra terror. It's not absurd. It's not an absurd premise.
that are like lethal,
Yeah,
like because it's like it's almost like a tick. Like a tick is so dangerous because not because of their size, it's just because you can't see them. Like you're
yeah.
sitting there, you know, on a couch or, you get home from like, hiking or something and that thing's on you, but you don't know because it's like the size of a fucking like,
Hmm.
blackhead.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is, you
Is there
could
a
add
tick
to
movie? It's got to be.
gotta be a tick movie. That's next. I feel like
Could be on Long Island, yo.
we're dropping a lot of gems, man. So if anyone's really taking
That's a
notes
Long
from
Island
this,
film. We got
yeah,
mad ticks.
yeah.
That's gonna be
Uh
homegrown.
but
But yeah, let's switch gears though, because I'm dying to
uh
know what you thought of Spinal Tap, man.
but yeah, I'm glad that you liked Arachnophobia because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure how that movie was going to, you know,
It
uh
was super fun. I wish I
yeah.
watched it with my son because he's got a thing with insects and shit like that, and it's a fun movie like that.
I
And
think
I regret that I didn't see it in the theater.
yeah.
That would have been fucking super fun.
And
Perfect.
and now look at you, 32-year-old man sitting there with regrets.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
So, shout out to Johnny North for making this episode happen when he was in complete like his head blew up like Clayton Bigsby when or that guy in the crowd when I told him that I didn't see Spinal Tap. He's like, you fucking watch Halloween 6 100 times and you can't watch Spinal Tap
Yeah.
once.
And you're a lifelong musician
Yeah,
in
but
a
like
band. It's like it seems to be a rite of passage. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, like most people that play
yeah,
music like know that film or quote that film even quotable.
I I agree, and I don't know. There wasn't really any real reason, and it's like, yeah. So
Let
I finally watched it
Let me
today.
ask you one other question. Are
Yeah,
you like other Christopher Guest films? Are you not a fan of that style or?
I just don't. It's not something I. You know what? I could watch one of them and think they're the greatest things ever.
Mhm.
I just haven't.
Best in Show? Never saw that.
No, that
Oh,
whole
that's another.
universe,
I got you. All right, but
Mighty
back to what?
Wind, Mighty
Tell me.
Wind.
Some are better than others, but Waiting for Guffman and Best in Show are fucking let's see. But yes, go ahead. Let me know.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, as soon as I started watching it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like Rob Reiner's doing his documentarian thing. I'm like, yeah, this genre, this whole universe is so ripe for this, because of the excess. But it turns out, I think the movie in a way took place in '82. Was that what I heard? Right? Because I know
Yeah.
the actual film was released in '84, but like I think they were talking about the year 1982 in the movie, which I'm thinking like, wow, if only they would have waited a few more years. I feel like by 1988 they would have had an even more
Well,
of
it
a
was kind of pioneer. This film and I believe the Ruddles were like two of the first real mockumentary kind of, especially about music that
yeah.
I remember. And like even to the point where when I saw this when I was so young, I thought they were like a real band. It was just ridiculous. Because I
You
was little.
know, I think so too,
Yeah.
because when they would make appearances as Spinal Tap. So
Yes.
I didn't really understand what was going on. And it wasn't until like my love of Laverne and Shirley, because the other two guys could have passed. Like
Yeah.
Christopher Guest literally could be Ozzy Osbourne in 1972. Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't
Yeah.
even have known. And the other guy, Harry Shearer, like he
Right.
looks exactly like Derek Smalls.
Yes.
But the main guy, Derek Saint whatever, right? Like
Hubbins.
so like I love Laverne and Shirley. So I was like, oh, that's fucking McKeon or Mark, you know,
Yeah.
something McKeon. And so I think as time went on, I was like, oh, I get
Michael.
it. Michael, yeah. I'm like, this is like a spoof. Because I think they even made MTV appearances. Like, okay, Spinal
They
Tap.
did. He released the real album like later. I think it was in the '90s. That was way after the movie was a success and stuff, but
Yeah.
they didn't jump right on it after a while. But I don't think it was an overnight success either. It was a cult, took on a life of its own.
So, it's such a good story because I'm watching my cats like eat a fly.
Nice.
So it's such a good story because if you're in a band, or it's like you put out something, it slightly works, and then from there you just keep chasing it, and then you keep. It reminded me of Kiss being like, okay, we're like a '70s band now. It's like, oh, okay, we're gonna do a disco song now. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
we're hair metal now. It's like, oh, 92, like, let's make Revenge and take the make off and like, be angry. Oh,
Right.
97. Oh, let's was that Psycho, like whatever that was. It was like we're a grunge band now.
Yeah.
Like they were forever chasing that with like
Fuck it. Let's put the makeup back on.
let's put the makeup on and stop making albums and just play the shit that people want to,
Yeah.
hear. So yeah, it was just the movie was super short. It was like I feel like in 80 minutes they,
Mhm.
they did everything. They had the I what I just I gotta say, like, was Fran Drescher always hot? Like she was
Oh,
like,
banger.
right?
So hot.
She was
I always
like,
thought she was fine as hell, man. But yeah.
but like the nanny was whatever, but seeing her there, I was just like, holy shit, just
Yeah.
smoke show.
Yep.
Um and I love, yeah, I mean it's just it's something that was like perfect for picking apart, like the personalities, them in the beginning talking to the suits, like no one knows anything, like no one knows anything about each other's world. Uh,
No.
and then like the ridiculous stuff, like the Stonehenge thing,
Yeah.
like, or like Christopher Guest talking about like a writing like a trilogy in D minor. And he's like, I really like Bach and Mozart. And he's like sitting there chewing gum. He's like,
Yeah.
what's this one called? He's like, oh, like Lick My Love Pump,
But yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
I'm known
So
for my solos. He's got the violin on the
yeah.
guitar. Like how
Well,
absurd that era was.
so absurd. And what I really love, which is very subtle from that the guitar solo thing, is that he just takes 1 second to like move the tuning peg on like that violin for 1 second. Like he could even tell. And then the Yoko, which is what everyone's gonna
Yeah.
basically think of when they think of Janine. I think the singer's Derek's girlfriend, and she comes along, and I love that they're like she's into yoga and astrology, and I'm like, fuck, I'm like, why is that so perfect? Like
Yeah, yeah.
to like,
And draws the stage costumes for the band has the direction that she thinks
yeah,
they should go in.
yeah,
And when he's looking at it, just like, what the fuck?
it's
Are you
so good.
serious?
And the manager's great. Like he had his what
Yes.
I love the scene where he basically tells them what he does, because in a way I felt like that frustration, when you think of
Hmm.
things, when you think of like a handler, basically, because I've
Sure.
known handlers and I have known people, like you watch movies like Get Him to the Greek and stuff like that. And he's like, there's no sex, drugs, and rock and roll for me. He's like, I'm looking for lost luggage and like, talking
Yeah.
to like fucking X, Y, and Z. But yeah, it was just great. Like everything condensed. It's
How
it,
about Fred Willard's scene in as the military at the
yeah,
military base?
yeah, yeah.
My
Oh yeah,
hair's a
yeah,
little long.
yeah.
People might mistake me for you guys.
And
I
he's like,
love Fred Willard, man. God damn it.
and he was like, "How about a couple of slow ones so I I could dance to them? How about you play a couple of slow ones
Uh,
so I could dance to them?"
I love
Um,
that son of a bitch.
it's for people that love heavy metal parking lot, those 15 minutes, it's kind of like this like imaginary world. Oh, and the album covers too was very funny.
That was a great scene.
First of all, Smell the Glove is just a great fucking title. It's so
Yeah.
good. Right.
What's wrong with being sexy? No,
And
sexist.
yeah,
What's wrong with being sexy? So
well,
funny.
you think of like it had to have been like a poke at like, those like Scorpions album covers, right? Like
Yeah,
Virgin
totally.
Killer and like all these like weird random things where you're just
The
like,
one with the girl on her knees with a dog standing
yeah,
on in front of the guy. I can't remember the album that it was. There was one with a, I think a chick with a titty hanging out right in the back of a limousine. These are
I
all Scorpion covers. I haven't
yeah,
even gotten past the
no,
Scorpion.
yeah. Well, there was Virgin Killer and there was like a young girl there, and I think they had to
Yeah,
like change that.
fucking Germans, man.
Yeah, like maybe like
Clearly.
that's the excuse that they went with, like I have no idea, but
Now,
so
now, when Metallica did the Black Album, they had to know the power, like it crossed their mind, right? I mean, everybody knew that the Spinal Tap movie. It would have to cross your mind at some point when you make the decision to make an all black cover.
not me
But
because I didn't
Spinal
see it
Tap did it first.
because I didn't see it. Maybe now that
No,
you
but
mention it.
Metallica definitely saw
Yeah.
that fucking movie. Yeah.
Well, yeah, yeah, the Black Album, but then I remember it had that faint like little snake thing,
Snake.
that little
Right. I'm
like
just saying it had to cross their thought in a second in a meeting.
yeah.
It had to be even as a joke. But yeah, that was an especially funny uh, scene when they first got the records.
I love Bruno Kirby too, like as like the limousine driver. Because he just played like a really obnoxious guy and he was just talking about like the Frank Sinatra book or something. And then he was just like, yeah, it's a fad. It's a fad, because like you just hear people like that with metal or like hip hop and stuff like
Yeah,
that, where they're just like,
everything.
it's like, yeah, it's like this will go away. This will go
I,
away.
I love when he looks to the side, like, are they listening? Like, listen, these kids don't understand. When you've loved and lost, like Frank has,
Yeah, yeah. So
that
this guy,
line right there. Like
yeah,
me and
I
Todd quote that shit like every time we see each other.
because I fucking like some people swear, and there's a few things. So like it's funny because they go to Elvis's grave as well, but there are
Mm,
just like some old people that like Frank Sinatra and Elvis are like their shit. And to me, I'm
mm,
always like, I mean, what's the difference between them and like I don't know, In Sync or what? Like they're just guys with good voices that sang other people's songs. Like they're just like
yeah,
okay, like they didn't write anything. They
they
were
didn't even
just like
write.
yeah,
I know
no, they were just like
that puts you down a notch automatically in my book.
kinda,
Yeah,
especially if like you're an older like when you're an older person shitting on certain things. It's like yeah, it's the same. Let's see, what do I have? I love
I'm
the
pretty sure I could croon too. If I wanted to.
listen. If Sal Governale could do it. Record store. I like that. So like when they went to the record store and no one was there,
Oh,
that guy
they're
was
they're blaming like everything else, but like no one cares.
yeah, because it
What's his name? Paul Schaefer was kick my ass. That was the scene
that
he
was
was in,
Paul
right?
Schaefer.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't even recognize him.
yeah,
There's a
man.
there's a few fucking cameos. Like Mr. Bedley from fucking the Jeffersons is like the hotel dude, you know?
Oh, he's got one of my favorite lines in the film that when that guy's insulting him, he's like, "I'm just as God made me, sir."
Yeah.
It's another one I find so funny. But yeah, Billy Crystal, one of the mimes
Yeah.
at the party at the
At the
waiter,
party.
Billy
Yeah, yeah.
Crystal. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, listen, it was it was the story of the band in about 80 minutes. And they covered all the bases, like a member leaves, they try to change the sound, they start playing like jazz fusion or something. Uh, and then
Yeah.
a lot of ups and downs. And yeah, it took me, I don't know, I guess what, since it came out in 84, took me 39 years, but
Mm. You're
we
there.
so
We both did something.
we
We
started
both
from the
did a
bottom.
thing.
Yeah. But it was great.
I tell you, and this might pair well with the Anvil double feature, the Anvil
Yeah.
doc.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's funny. So you have a mockumentary and then you have a real one, but they're kind of like, you can't
so
even,
much similarity.
yeah, like you could tell me the Hannibal movie is completely a mockumentary with like fake characters, and I would
Yeah.
believe you because it's so fucking absurd,
Yes.
and
So
Showtime's had it up for a minute now. So whenever I need something in the background, like, whenever I edit the podcast, um, I put on like the In Search of Darkness stuff, like the horror
mm,
movie stuff, because it's
perfect.
like I'm
Yeah.
listening to the podcast, I'm like doing some editing notes here and there, but visually I'm like watching. And the same thing with like when I need something in the background, like the Anvil one's just great because it's wherever you catch it, it really it is so funny, but there is a lot of similarities because it's just like the universe is so, obviously the Spinal Tap guys are a little bit like further removed from reality, and
Yeah.
there's something more endearing about the Anvil guys where they were just always terrible, but to them
Yeah.
they think that they weren't and that they invented something, you
Still
know.
looking. I know I'm 50 years old. I'm still looking for an Anvil fan in real life that I can say I've met. You
I
know,
think I think you meant a
still
good
yet to happen.
I think you meant like a good Anvil song.
No, I always think they're terrible. The only ridiculous part of that movie is like slashing everybody and like Lars talking about how massive Anvil was, like important. It's like,
Yeah.
not really.
And
I'm here for the story, and I'm wishing these guys. I love them, and
yeah,
I
I
want
wish
all the best for them. But it's fucking terrible, and always was.
yeah, like I hope they sell a zillion albums, but when I
Yeah.
listen to this, I'm just like, this is brutally bad. But yeah, so like the beginning of the Anvil thing, it is like Spinal Tap because you're
Mm,
talking to them about this band. And for the most part, the viewer is just like, who the fuck is this band? Never heard of this band. And then you see them doing metal on metal in 82, and you're like, this isn't real.
yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, this
I
is
tell
real.
you, I would love maybe a limited series on Netflix of Spinal Tap now with all these old metal acts that get back together and they're going out and they're in gray hairs and shit, and still almost pushing 70, 80 years old out there playing. I think there could be something there.
I think so. So
Yeah.
that guy, did you watch I Want to Rock?
Oh, fantastic. Enjoyed
Okay.
every minute of it.
Yeah, so the guy Tyler Meeson, who we will have on the next episode, I think he did a really good job with covering what they were doing. But granted, some of them weren't doing music, um,
Mm.
or maybe I'm just thinking of the girl from Vixen. But
Well, there was one act. What was the one act that I had no idea who they were? Um, God, was it Cherry something? Why is it escaping my name? I don't know, like everyone else involved in it, and then there was one band. They had a minute in LA, but I don't remember them ever being a thing. I can't remember the name of it.
yeah, I don't
Guy who was
know.
sitting at a bar, one of the talking heads, short hair, looked like a total normie old dude. No,
No, I
man, I'll
just
fucking have
remember
to get that in front of me.
I remember the girl from Vixen. I remember John Corabi, Snake Sabo, um,
Yeah, it's great. I don't want to.
Winger, yeah.
Yeah, good story. You know what? It works, and I'll probably repeat this when we have them on. But it's just like those stories. I remember I was always a sucker for those VH1 countdown shows and whatever, and all the time. And one of my favorite ones ever was One Hit Wonders. And not that all these acts were one hit wonders by any means, but the acts that didn't have that massive success and went on forever, the whatever happened to somebody that had a little success and then they had to go back and take a regular job. Like that whole journey is way more fascinating almost than the people that are on some plateau of rock now, you know?
Okay, so that's sometimes that's the beauty of YouTube now, where you can look those up. And there was one in particular where it was like the Sunset Strip thing. It was like a 30-minute episode, and it, you know, I think D. Schneider talked about just he's like, I was famous but broke. He's like, that sucked.
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah,
everyone knew me, but I'm like riding a bike to like Baskin Rob, like wherever he was working at the time. He's like,
yeah.
I had fame, but I had no money anymore. And he's like, and that fucking sucked. Which is cool because he rebuilt himself, which is, good for him.
Oh
But then
yeah.
then you have the guy from like Kicks, I think at the end where he was like painting. Like he was like painting I think he was like doing something like on like advertisement and stuff like that.
Even I read an interesting thing. I don't know if it was on Loudwire or something. Bands that like Testament, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Pretty successful. Chuck
yeah,
Billy's a safety consultant for like truck driving or whatnot.
yeah, yeah,
Like that's what he does. Like Testament, it tours a lot. You know, they're still pumping out records and shit. He's been in the game a minute, but that's what he does.
yeah. But cool.
It's a
Yeah.
long way to the top
It is a
if you
long
want to
way to the
rock and
top.
roll.
Hey, listen, it's still better than most, that's for sure. But
Oh yeah,
okay, cool. So we covered arachnophobia and we covered This is Spinal Tap, and luckily these are two movies that we didn't see that we both enjoyed. I think
yes,
eventually, we'll come across something where we'll just be like, that was the worst thing I've ever seen.
yeah,
Um,
and that'll be fun too.
that'll be fun too.
I
So
like shitting on things sometimes too. And speaking of real quick before I know we're about to wrap up and stuff, my latest YouTube obsession has been watching old Siskel and Ebert episodes. You ever do
yeah.
that?
When we do the tournaments on Facebook, right? Whenever
Yeah,
we do, what I pull instead of the trailers, are if we have two movies competing against each other, I go to Siskel and Ebert and see if they reviewed it, because I just
yeah.
put those links up because they're great. They're fun to watch.
That show was so goddamn good. I forgot how good it was.
Oh yeah,
Having
they
pretty
would
intelligent conversations on
they
film.
would have wrapped this up
Sometimes
in 22 minutes.
yeah, they bang it out. They were professionals. They did a lot of shtick. Like they were. Sometimes you could tell they were getting heated at each other. But I just thought how funny it was. Like now, you put a film out, and there'll be reviews on IMDb, and there'll be reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Amazon's going to blah blah. You could pull this and that one. But in the network television era, where there was only so many stations or whatever, and that was a big vehicle. You got your film on there that they're going to review it, but they might not be kind to it. They might shit like all like this one network show that everybody watches to see what like movies they might see. And these two guys come out, give it a thumbs down, and talk about how fucking stupid it was. And then even have a year end. We're going to talk about the best films of the year, but we're going to have a whole
The
episode
worst,
about
yeah,
the shittiest
yeah,
movies. Like they would
yeah,
just shit on people, man.
yeah. You would look at those two herbs and you would be like, man, Siskel and Ebert give him two thumbs down. Like, I don't know, should we go?
Right. Except for horror, they were both. Gene was a little cooler, I think, but
Yeah,
Roger was a douche with
they
horror.
would never. Yeah, when it came to horror, I think they even did Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is like a famous one that they did, where they were just
Yeah.
like, "This is disgusting," blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah, horrible. Halloween one they loved obviously, and Halloween two they were just like, "This is just like cashing in," and I love watching the old horror stuff that they do because
Oh hell yeah.
it wasn't for them, but like it was just if you had like terms of endearment or like fucking like something like
Once in a
that.
blue moon, some like weird shit. Like I was watching Psycho 3 the other night. That
Oh yeah, yeah.
Ebert's like, I loved it. I thought it was, I thought it was really good. And this and that. Actually, some of the Psycho sequels are better than they have any right to be. But it wasn't like the movie
Was
horror
that?
movies you shitted on, and you love this one like more than like. Oh no,
I think
man.
that was Jeff Fahey was in that one.
Yes,
He was like,
yes.
maybe they killed him. He killed him, put him in like an ice box or something. If I
He was
remember.
like out. Yeah, and then the sheriff was taking scoops of ice,
Yeah,
and he got blood on his mouth and shit. Yeah,
yeah,
Roger loved that one.
that was good. Yeah,
And they
that was a
like the
good.
Evil Dead too, I think. I think they like the Evil Dead too. But anyway, I could go on and on about that. I love those guys.
Um, cool, man. Yeah, so we gotta
Yeah.
eventually we gotta talk about God is a Bullet. And Talk to Me, which you said you liked. To me, Talk to Me blew
It's in my
me.
top 10. Maybe I used the wrong word or something like that, but it's in my top 10.
I
It's
just couldn't believe. What's better than that for you right now this year?
um I really like Bo Was Afraid. Um
Yeah, I didn't watch.
Asteroid City.
I gotta watch that.
Uh What else is in
Asteroid
there?
City. Asteroid
To
City. I want to
Leslie.
watch. To Leslie. Okay, I didn't know that was this year.
Yeah,
Really?
I think so.
It was last year. 'Cause I
I
remember.
don't know if it was a fit. It might have been one of those ones that official release date, festival release date, or say it's 2022, but I
So,
think
so
the beginning of the year.
what happened was, um, I rented it, so it was a VOD release, and Netflix put it on this year,
Gotcha.
but it's 2022.
Um, what else did I have out there?
Asteroid City, I want to watch. Beau is Afraid. I don't. I know that I'm gonna.
It's not gonna be enjoyable for everyone. It was
Yeah,
lucky. It was either it was gonna be in your wheelhouse or it was gonna suck.
yeah.
And I felt like that was that too. Leslie, it says 2022. I thought I watched it. Yeah, who the fuck knows? What else says John Wick 4 is fucking super cool. Linoleum, a little film. There's a bunch of I watch a lot this fucking year.
Yeah, I got like,
Renfield's up there.
yeah, Hypnotic.
Oh, I
Like,
watched an insane fucking Cage movie last night.
oh,
Sympathy for the Devil.
yeah,
Did you
yeah.
see that?
No, but I saw the trailer and I was
It's
like,
not great. It is
I
not great.
I was like, how did it? Every now and then he just sneaks one out there, and you're like, oh, all right, I guess there's a new Nicolas Cage movie where
There's a couple in the chamber there that yeah, he's like
yeah, he
he
was,
kidnaps a guy basically. But if you like it, it's got a lot of things you could see a mile coming, some weak points, and it's not overall amazing. But if you like an unhinged Nicolas Cage, and I know you do,
yeah,
it does not disappoint because he's
yeah,
fucking completely insane for an hour and a half.
okay, yeah, but Hypnotic and that other movie, like Hypnotic, it's
Oh,
funny, like I put that fucking Hypnotic on because I love Robert Rodriguez, and the trailer reminded me of the first Power.
mm,
And I was like, I gotta watch this. And I put it on. I'm like, 90 minutes. I'm like, that's easy. And 20 minutes in, my girlfriend was like, what is this? This is so bad. And then by the end of the movie, she's like, all right, that was pretty fucking good. And I feel like a
yeah.
lot of people hated it. Like when I posted it, I loved it. They're like, you're the only person that I know that said it was good.
I didn't. I only heard. I didn't hear much chatter. I heard that you said it was good, and I was definitely going to see it. Just haven't yet. I didn't even realize it was a Rodriguez film. So that's
Yeah.
even sweetens the deal.
And he wrote it, and it's like Total Recall, Memento, fucking like First Power. Like it's just like all these great movies mixed into one. Maybe like everyone just hates Ben Affleck's acting. I don't really know.
People do hate Ben Affleck. You know, a lot of people.
He's never done anything to me, so it's hard for me to hate the guy.
Yeah, I don't listen. I don't know any of these people personally.
Yeah.
Give a shit.
So, but
Make something good.
all right,
Yeah, we said it all.
we did.
We'll do this soon.
All right.
All right, later, man.
Later.
No one cares about, but them in the world.